Thank you very much, Rutger. And to start with, I'm not, as Rutger already indicated, I'm not a blockchain expert. I'm not a hackathon expert, and I'm even wearing a suit. So it's very special. I'm very honored that Rutger invited me to speak here. And what I'm doing and what I'm working on is indeed complexity and uncertainty. Thinking about how people, firms, governments, organizations can act effectively in our world, which is complex and uncertain, and even more so every day. And to make a very long story short, indeed there's only one thing that we know for certain, and we will forever know for certain, that is that there will always be surprises, positive ones and negative ones, and we will be making mistakes. And my work focuses very much on drawing the conclusion from that simple insight. And what I want to convey the next 20-25 minutes is why I am so excited about the work that Rutger is doing more generally, and why I am so excited about this Dutch blockchain hackathon. But because that's not just because of the blockchain, it's not because of the hackathon, because I think it has wider meaning. If we can inspire people with the, let's say, the blockchain and hackathon mentality, I think that has wider meaning than just being good for blockchain applications. So that's what I wanna do, to give you some background in that context. And if I look at the moment at Europe and the European continent in particular, that's not a very dynamic continent. There's much pessimism around. There's much pessimism about the prospects for growth of our welfare in the future. There are many people who think that their children will be in a worse position than they are. And that's really different from a couple of decades ago. If I look at my colleagues, I'm an economist by profession. If I look at the mainstream economic profession, there's much talk about a so-called savings glut. Sorry that I have to speak in some jargon today, but I think it's important to tell it. And the savings glut means that there is much money available and more money available than we can invest. And that has driven interest rates down in the past few decades, and even to in some areas negative levels. And still there's not a lot of dynamism. And there is the view, another jargon word, of secular stagnation. And that has two aspects. There are people who argue that we have reached the end of innovation. We have reached the end of potential for productivity growth. That there is a permanent lack of demand for new products in the economy. And they come up with the solution that there should be more government involvement in innovation, there should be investment in infrastructure, and we should continually have very low interest rates. These ideas of the savings glut and of secular stagnation cannot be founded, I'm deeply convinced of that, in sound economic or social theory. And also not in experience. Absolutely not in experience. And these are not only wrong theories, in my view, but they are, quote unquote, in parentheses, they are dangerous, I think. Because believing in those ideas has the risk of becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it feeds pessimism. And what I would say, and that comes from other theory related to complexity and uncertainty, but I will not go in the details here. Human beings, we all are creative. We have the capacity to innovate, to learn, if the conditions are right. Human beings always want to improve their situation and want to get in a better position than they are. And the most important contribution to growth of our welfare, to our well-being, comes from innovation-driven growth of productivity. So what is necessary? What kind of an environment is necessary for innovation-driven productivity growth? What does enable innovation? Well, a couple of words about that, because I don't have too much time to elaborate. But first of all, fair and open competition with sufficient incentives for wanting to win. Should be an incentive that you want to win the game. Competitive pressure focuses the mind. And then secondly, competing on marketable solutions that can work, not just inventions, but things that can be put into practice and work. Research itself is not sufficient. It has to be linked to a continuous feedback process in developing the ideas. And that feedback process that includes thinking, acting, assessing, adapting, and that all the time. And just thinking leads to what I would call action paralysis. Nothing happens. And I thought in the sheets of, I think of Rutger, or somebody said it, Nike is right in one respect, just do it. But there's one aspect that you have to add to it, and it's do it in a prudent way. So the challenge is to combine really trying, experimenting, with doing that in a fail-safe way. Innovation, what is important also is bringing together different disciplines, different perspectives, different cultures, not just guys wearing suits, but also not just guys wearing no suits, I would argue. I have started to wear a suit when everybody else no longer did it. And that's when I feel comfortable. And if I look at an audience, I always look at the person that is slightly different from the average. And there you learn the most. And that's it. People from different cultures with an open mind. Because, as the famous economist Joseph Schumpeter said, innovation in the end is finding new combinations. Combining things that may be already there in a different way, and then something new emerges. He called that creative destruction. For companies, that means that you should bring in outsiders, you should bring in all kinds of different stakeholders. And for a government, it means allow it to happen as a minimum. And certainly, in the interconnected world that we live in at the moment, it is important that in innovating, indeed, you use what Rutger calls the ecosystem. And you combine the different elements, the different persons in the ecosystem. And innovations can be spurred by jointly developing, co-creating, as it is called nowadays, new ideas, applications. And I think the important role of government is to adjust laws and regulations to the new environment and to the newly created ideas, on top of allowing people to think outside of the box and coming up with new ideas and that may challenge the conventional wisdom. This very briefly, and perhaps incompletely, but if you realize, let's say this, I think you will agree that hackathons can not only be great fun, I think they are, and they will be. But they also are very powerful engines for growth of our welfare, for dynamism in society. And it can help us, and I come back to where I started, hopefully to get rid of what I would call too widely spread pessimism in our societies. And in that respect, I'm so glad to see so many people around here, perhaps there are even people outside the room. Personally, that gives me hope that perhaps I'm in the wrong circles where I see all that pessimism, and there's much more optimism outside those circles. So that's what I hope. And of course, the ecosystem aspect is absolutely present in the hackathon upset. So I do believe that not only private companies, and I will spend a few minutes riding a hobby horse of myself. Don't blame me for that. I believe that's not only just interesting for companies, private companies, but also for governments to think more about this instrument. Because I think it would allow governments to involve their citizens and use the knowledge and the information and perspectives of their citizens to think about societal issues and to solve problems in society. And I personally think, and I'm focusing just on the Netherlands, but I think it may be applicable also, I think it is applicable also to other countries, but it would be good if our next cabinet would start an experiment with hackathons. Do some hackathons. I do believe that could contribute to a modernization and an innovation of the political process. And I even think that it would be better than organizing many referenda. I find it a little bit a poor innovation 40, 50 years after D66 came up with the proposal for innovating the political process. Now again, coming with the same instruments in a completely changed environment. So why not try hackathons? Not only, I would say, a modernization, but also primarily an improvement of the political process. And I know that there are some examples at a local scale, so there's something to build on. So perhaps a new cabinet could start with one or more hackathons on how to modernize our democracy. I have some ideas myself, but if the time is ripe, I will invite people to join my team, because I really would like them to be part of a team. But let me not be carried away and talking about my own ideas and so on. Today we are here for launching the hackathon on the blockchain, and I think it is a perfect topic for a hackathon. And I can only underline what Rutger said on the place where the hackathon will be in Groningen. I happen to be part-time professor in Groningen, but I also work part of my time in London. And in London, the average traveling time of my people working with me in London is 1.5 hours to their work. And they would not be afraid of having to travel from the Randstad to Groningen. So perfect place to have it. So, and finally, I'm really happy to be a small part of that process, and I'm really looking forward to the journey that we are starting today. Thank you very much. Now, Rutger, I was not invited or instructed to announce somebody else.
No, it's okay.
So I just return it to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. if there's anyone with a burning question to Lex, we have time for one question, but make it quick one.
Doet het? Ja. I saw the tegenlicht uit program on television a couple of months ago about Estland, completely digital government.
Yeah.
And maybe it's an idea for the government here to take the plane or bike or bus or whatever to look and watch.
Yeah, that's a very nice reminder for me, because I was a year ago or so I was in Singapore on thinking about cities in the next 20, 30 years or so, and then there was somebody from Estonia, and they referred to the electronic citizenship that you could have. Fascinating, really fascinating, but I didn't follow up on it. So welcome to my team already. Yeah, first.
Okay, thank you very much, Lex.